Every day is an opportunity for you to learn something that sets your home improvement or home services business apart from the competition. Let's make today one of those days. This is a podcast for home improvement and home services marketing. This is BuiltBy.
You've got to be adaptable. You've got to find a way to accommodate an uncomfortable customer.
If you're not getting to home advisor leads in the first 5 minutes, you shouldn't even do it.
Hopefully we're eating their lunch while they're trying to get back up and running.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Matt here with Hatch and another episode of BuiltBy. As always, I hope everything's going awesome for you on this Thursday, March 25th. So every marketing department I've ever been a part of, it's kind of the same dynamic. It's always 1 to 2 people. There's some expectations that get put on internally and externally, which is interesting because I think marketing is really one of the only departments that has roles to fill when it comes to external, when you're driving leads, driving revenue, building that brand, creating content for everyone to use in the organization. Additionally, you're kind of the pep squad internally. So all of the, things that you're putting together kind of gets your team hyped up, makes them excited when they see a customer testimonial that, that really enjoyed their bathroom remodeling job. It just kind of gets your install team a little hyped, right? All of these things combined, and marketing is still, one of the first places, if not the first place people look when the axe comes down to, reduce resources. So maximizing your potential on limited resources is very important. And that's what we're going to dive into today with Vicki. So to kind of set the scene of today's episode a little bit, I had seen Vicki's name pop up with Exterior Source on a webinar that one of our partners did, Leap. Great partners of ours. You've probably heard of them. The name Exterior Source kind of stuck out to me. And I know I had seen it before, but I couldn't figure out what. And then I Googled it and found it was right down the road. And then I realized, Exterior Source. I mean, they've been around since, I've been around, right? They do an amazing job of marketing. And I think that's really the crux of, good marketing is when you see the name, you kind of recognize it, and then it clicks with you and you're like, oh, yeah, that's them. And the reason I wanted to talk to Vicki today specifically about this topic is because she's had experience in so many different areas of not even just marketing. She was in retail. She worked for the biggest blockbuster competitor at the time. She did marketing for kind of one of the cornerstones of my childhood, which is the minor league baseball team here, Richmond Braves. It was a farm team for the Atlanta Braves. She worked at Architect. She ran the marketing department over there. And all of these things have led to her current role. So we're going to dive in a little bit about how all of that has kind of shaped her and her role now. So one of the cool parts of this episode that I really enjoyed was diving into the marketing mixing bowl, which is Vicki's take on creating an integrated marketing campaign that pulls in, social media, PPC, TV ads, radio ads, all of these different things that make up Exterior Source's marketing strategy. So we're going to dive into that, get her insights there. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and kick the episode off. Again, this is Vicki Kiger, Director of Marketing at Exterior Source. I hope you enjoy.
I had a very varied background, I guess you would say, but everything that I've done has helped what I've done for later on. So I think that's always important. Sometimes people change complete fields, but still you always bring something from your previous job. Out of graduate school, I started in retail with a department store. I worked on the floor, selling things. And then I went to the advertising department and worked for the advertising director. So that really set me up for future jobs. Then I went to the Richmond Braves, minor league baseball, AAA. And I was an intern, and then I did group sales, and then I did player appearances and some, community relations. So all that helped me down the line for almost every other job I had. Then I went to Video World, which was a video chain which is in competition with Blockbuster at the time, back in the old days when you rented videos. And so that job, I got that job because of the events I had done at the Braves. So that's one of the main reasons why. That's the first time I was the marketing director. My title was marketing director at Video World. And I did events and advertising there. I did hundreds and hundreds of events there, which allowed me to get the job with Martin's further on down the road. After Video World, I went to Architect, which was the largest deck builder in the United States, and did their national marketing and advertising. HDTV was just starting then, and we did actual HGTV ads, and I can remember the franchisees were like, we don't know what that is. And they began to see it because they started getting sales from it. So we were one of the first advertisers on HGTV. I've always been very proud of that. And that led me to eventually, again, down the road, to the job I have today, because they're very similar. In between, I did another sports job, and then I went to Martin's grocery chain. That was 5 years, and I did hundreds of events, and these were big events. We did a lot of things with sports backers in Richmond, which they're very well known actually nationwide. And we did. I mean, I was at every event in town, so that was probably the most varied job I did of everything that I've done. And then I came to Exterior Source, which is very similar to the architect job. So everything I did in every single job helped me further on down the line. Everything, even if it was good or if it was bad. There's bad that happens in jobs, and also you learn from that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to zoom in a little bit to that architect experience.
Okay.
That was really kind of your first foray into home improvement.
Yes. Yes.
How have things kind of changed since then, especially in the marketing side, to where you're at now with Exterior Source and how you're kind of doing things on that side?
Well, I think the major thing was, if I remember correctly, that was the beginning of pay-per-click. We just started doing pay-per-click. I didn't really know that much about it. I learned about it, hired somebody. I actually did it at first, if you can believe that, because that's back when you could do it and you didn't have to hire somebody who had like a doctorate degree in pay-per-click. But so I did it, and then we hired somebody because, I could see it was growing and getting more complex. And so that was the beginning of that. And it's changed where now you wouldn't really think of being a marketing director and not using online advertising, whatever it might be, pay-per-click. You wouldn't even think of your job without that as a component of it. So that's drastically changed. So I think that's the main thing. And the industry has changed. Composite decking was just beginning in its infancy then when I was at Architect. We started building with composite products, and now composite is a huge part of the market in the decking industry. We still do pressure treated decks because they're less expensive, but that's another thing. Just the way the products have evolved and new products have come into the market, of course.
That's interesting. And I really want to highlight, one thing that you mentioned there, which is, pay-per-click was in its infancy then, and now it's a component of a lot of, effective marketing strategies today. And this is something we were talking about yesterday, and you used a phrase that I personally, I'm stealing it. I'm going to start using it, which is, the marketing mixing bowl, which is you need your hands on a lot of different areas. And this is something I want to zoom into like a little bit later on in the podcast.
Okay.
But I thought it was interesting that you then to now, and your early experience with HGTV and the ads and how that all has kind of culminated now. It's very interesting. Now at Exterior Source, what are some things that, like, when you first joined the team, that you've obviously last year was a big to do.
For sure.
Leading into this year. So how have you pivoted since that, and for everything that kind of happens that would interrupt your marketing plan, your flow there?
Well, so we did I'd say I'd look at two things. Prior to March of last year, which most everybody had to pivot, I don't know that there's anybody who didn't.
Mhm.
Um, in the fall of 2019, our owner made a change in strategy. He wanted to get us out of print. There's various reasons for that. We were still productive in print, but he wanted to move us out of print and go into more pay-per-click. We were doing pay-per-click. He just wanted
Mhm.
to ramp it up like 5 times what it was. So
Mhm.
we started, doubling it, tripling it, and we've increased it quite dramatically. We've actually stopped all print and we're putting that money into pay per click. So he did that. He had me work on that in the fall of 2019. So luckily, it was really at a great time because when March came of 2020 and everybody's at home and online is exploding, and that's where you're everybody's doing that. You're seeing it just grow and grow and grow. We were already prepared for that. Now, had we could have
Mhm.
certainly made the shift. We would have made the
Mhm.
shift anyway in that March, but we'd already with pay per click and with online, you have to build that up. You can't just start it and day one you have like 800 leads. You gotta build that up. That's just the way it is with online. So
Mhm.
I think that's the two things. Luckily for us, we were prepared for that ahead of time, but we did pivot in March. I think the main thing we did was virtual sales presentations. Anybody in our
Mhm.
business had to do virtual sales presentations. That didn't really affect me. I just had to publicize it, but our sales team had to. And then the other thing with that did affect me, and we talked a little bit about this, is I acquired a second job. So we had a company handling our social media, and our owner sent me a text message. I remember in March of last year and said, I'm getting rid of our the team, and you're going to handle social media. And I'm like, okay. And I've got basically 30 days to learn every single thing, how the newsletter's put together, all the media we're handling, do the schedule, learn how to do. And I mean, I posted on social media along with the ad agency that we had doing it, but I didn't do it full time and I didn't plan out all the strategy. So that was a huge pivot. I mean, for me,
Mhm.
that was massive. I acquired an entire job to go along with my current job. So that was a real big change personally for me and actually for the company. So
Yeah. See, that is actually a great segue into kind of our main topic today, which is that's one thing I think most home improvement marketers have faced at some point in their career. Even me personally, not even being in home improvement, my last company, we were very, very thinly stretched in the marketing department.
yes.
It's usually one or two people. So it's all about kind of maximizing your own potential and what you can get out of things with such a small department.
Yeah.
And, like you mentioned, there's always things coming down the pipe from leadership that's like, hey, well, I want to try this. We're going to completely change everything, try this. And, being positive, handling that sort of thing. So tell me, it's interesting having worked with such large companies and now in your current role where it's really you, and I know you've had a few people kind of supporting you in some endeavors, but what are some of the like pros and cons, I guess, of having that small marketing team and kind of running it from a director level?
Well, if you have a small team, and ours is pretty small because it's me, and I mean now I have people we outsource handling the website and the pay per click because those are I can't do those. Those are you
Right.
have to have somebody who specializes in that now. That's beyond the scope of most marketing directors to handle because it's when you're a company of a certain size, you need to do that. You have to go outside of the company. So, but the benefit is that we can react very quickly. So if our owner decides he wants to move money to something, we can literally do that the next week. You start the ball rolling that day, but you can make the change fairly quickly. So that's one really good benefit. And I've never had a big staff in any of those jobs I talked about. Two is the most people that I've ever had in the office working with me, and they were both part-time, and that was at Architect. So when here at Exterior Source, we had an outside agency handling social media and our newsletter, and then we have the web development team and all that, which is still with us. And then I had somebody doing direct mail. We were doing a lot of online direct mail, and both of those got wiped out in the all that happened this past year. So that's, I guess, the benefit is that you can move quickly. The con of the whole thing is that you better be organized. You have to be very, very disciplined and extremely organized. You have to have a lot of lists. I have clipboards up here. I'm looking at them. I have 5 clipboards, and each one of them is extremely important, and I use it every day. It's our social media plan for every single day for the month. I plan that ahead of time. I don't plan it day by day. You better not do that. And then I have a list with the graphic designer. She's freelanced to have her do certain things. And I have a list with our web people. I have a list with the TV people. So you have to be very organized. And even if you are really organized, sometimes you just have little roadblocks, and you just have to be able to, as the big word for the last year was pivot. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think that organization is huge, and so you organize everything by kind of the project it is.
Well, sort of. I have buckets, so to speak. I have a social media bucket, and in that bucket will be the plan for the month, and it'll be, I've got to come. It's great. You do the plan. Well, that's wonderful. You have your plan, but you've got to put the plan in action. You got to have content for every one of those days. So I got to do that. Then the graphic designer, she gets involved with me. I'll tell her we have certain columns. It might be outdoor living or tip of the day or house of the month or something like that. So I'll give her the art I want her to use and the wording, and she puts it together. So that helps me. So we have something nice and professional. Then I have a TV bucket where there's a schedule. I know what ads are running because we do infomercials, and we do a lot of that. Then I have a list with the web people. Here's the changes that need to happen to the website, or this isn't working and needs to be fixed, or I just read about this. Can we do this? And so I work in buckets, but I start off the day in social media, and then I kind of go from there. In between, there's 150 plus emails a day. And the other thing that's happening is people are starting, we didn't have this when the agency was handling social media as much, but people are starting to comment and respond and ask questions and interact on social media because I'm trying to interact. That's me doing that too. So like today we had 5 questions. I mean, that's not a lot for some people, but I have to handle each one of those. And some of them were very specific things they wanted. And I had to call somebody to ask, can we do this? So, you got to be able to manage a lot of things. That there's a lot of, you're doing this, you're a juggler. I always have said, if you're in marketing, you're a juggler with a whole bunch of balls up in the air.
Kind of managing that chaos. That's definitely. I think everybody can kind of relate to that. That's awesome. A big thing of this though, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but it's easy to get burnt out, with a lot of this stuff going on, and finding motivation can be tricky, I guess. For me personally, what I've found is that if we get a lead from here, I consider that a win. And if we get, some engagement over here on a social media post, I consider that a win. And all of these things kind of culminate to keeping me motivated, keeping me on track. For you personally, what do you view as like the wins, and what kind of keeps you motivated to come in every day and answer the list of things you got to do?
Well, so I'll start with social media. I think since I took that over, a win for me would be if somebody engages with us, if they like our post, if they follow us, if they answer back or ask a question, or somehow they engage with us. Because I do all the analytics too, and it's it can be depressing if you go along and you're looking at it and it says, oh, 2 people like this, 1 person like that. You're like, oh my gosh, that's just, I'm doing all this work to get 1 person in the whole world to like it. So
Yeah.
you want to see an increase, and so we've seen that, and that's motivating because you think you're on the right track. The newsletter, I took over the newsletter, and I try to make, I'll tell you what I told the agency, and this is my philosophy about the newsletter and all of our social media. It's bright and sunny. We had the coronavirus last year. We didn't ignore it, but we didn't talk a lot about it. There's plenty of other people talking about it. My focus was on bright and sunny. So I want to make us the HGTV of a local market. So that's how I want to brand us, all of our social and our website and that type of thing. So it's important to me to really keep that focus. And so if we see people engaging, that makes me think we're on the right track. So that's one thing. Increased leads. If we have more leads this year than we had last year, we had a good year last year. Most people in our industry did, because people were at home and looking at all the things they needed to fix. So if we have an increase, which we have had a huge increase this year, which is fantastic. So that's motivating. If we have, and I think just then personally for me, some of the things that have happened on LinkedIn, doing those LEAP webinars, which we talked about, and then doing the podcast today. Personally, for me, I think I really like doing them, and I'm happy to share anything that I can to help somebody. So that's a personal motivator too.
Yeah, there you go. Personal brand building. That's huge today,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned the HGTV. You want your newsletter to kind of be the guiding light, HGTV thing, something people can look forward to. And it seems like a lot of your marketing is kind of inspiration based. Like you're trying to inspire homeowners.
Yes.
Is that kind of calculated? Is that what your kind of go-to market, your strategy is around, is inspiring homeowners to get, to want to do some home improvements around the house, things like that?
Yes. And I mean, that's my philosophy with all of our social media and our newsletter, all of it. If you look at our social media, and we are literally on everything. I mean, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. I think I got them all. So I try to use the theme of, it's not always about, we're an exterior home improvement project. We do gutters, siding, roofing, windows, doors, and decks. So it's everything exterior. We don't go inside the home and do anything. I mean, we might have to if we take windows out, but we don't do inside products like kitchens and baths. But you will see that on our social media, sometimes I'll post something about interior things, because I look at it, not everybody, we certainly don't want to sell all the time. People aren't interested in you sell, and they want to learn something. I'm a consumer too. When I look at somebody's social media, I want it to help me. I want to learn something from it. I want to see, hey, that's a really pretty paint color. What is that color? Maybe I could change my kitchen cabinets to this. I could do that. I could do this. So I look at a lot of other social media, and I look at a lot of newsletters from things like Better Homes and Gardens, Country Living, House Beautiful, HGTV, DIY. And I try to learn from that, and I try to put out into the exterior source universe that type of information. It'll help a homeowner, whether it's inside, outside of their house, landscaping, but it's always home driven. And it's always positive. I can't think of, we've not done anything negative. It's always positive, because I don't want people to come to us and be sad. I want them to be happy and full of sunshine. So that's the philosophy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's like one of I read something recently that was like, you want to put your homeowner, you want the story to be about them, and you want them to come to the realization that they need the problem, versus, if you don't repair your roof before next week, your house is going to collapse or something,
Right.
Kind of that fear mongering thing. And I personally relate to the the things that you're putting out there, that kind of inspiration based stuff. So that's really awesome. I love that like insight into how you're kind of centering your marketing and how you're kind of talking to homeowners on that side of stuff. It's
Yeah,
pretty
now
awesome.
I'll tell them stuff though. Like for example, there are some bad things that'll happen if your gutters don't work properly. I
Mm.
mean, you'll have water running down in the inside of your walls of your house. You'll have your gutters pulling off of the house if they're clogged up with leaves. There's if they get ice in them and freeze, they'll pull off. There's a lot of things that'll happen. If your shingles are bad on your roof, you're going to have leaks in your house. There are
Mm.
things that are going to happen. So I don't, when I say bright and sunny, I mean, there's information that is provided. I'll tell people a lot of times with our social posts, we'll say, here are 5 reasons why you should get leaf guard gutters. And we'll tell them, or we'll say something like, have you noticed there are water spots on your ceiling or something like that? We'll say, here are 5 signs to look for when you need new siding. So I try to
Mhm.
give information. We just did a post. I did one. I think it's in the newsletter coming up. Actually, it's going out tomorrow.
All right.
It says it's a spring checklist. All the things you should do around your house for your spring checklist. Now, not all of it is business that we can provide, but some of it is. There's gutters on there and siding and roofing for sure, but there's lawn care and things like that. So there's a lot of things that I want to educate people and help them to know more about what to look for in home improvement.
Yeah, that education piece is huge, and
Yeah.
that's awesome that you're kind of honing in on that. That kind of transitions into my next question, and kind of next topic. And I know we're running up against time in here, so I'm gonna ask this. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but you're mentioning social media, you're mentioning newsletters, and one of the things that we were talking about is that mixing bowl strategy. So that mixing
Yeah.
bowl marketing strategy. Can you explain what the mixing bowl strategy? I don't know if you have a mixing bowl on hand today, but if you could, if you could talk about it a
No.
little bit.
No, I don't have one of a soup bowl, but so when I was at Architect, we had national meetings, and I'd have to stand up in front of all the franchise system. They would come in from all over the country. There'd be 100 and some franchisees, and I wanted to visually explain something to them. I mean, this is mostly men, and they probably advertising was not something they were gonna maybe. I guess they weren't seasoned professionals in that because they were out building and selling. So I took a big bowl, and I had labels on different things. And literally I had a big bowl, and I threw in, and I'll use right now, we can use what we're doing now. So I would throw in home shows because they are coming back. We do home shows. I would throw in television. I'd throw in radio. I'd throw in, if you were doing Valpak, if you were doing Reach, it could be, let's see, pay-per-click would be in there. It would be, I guess, our newsletter, we'd put that in there. Events, if you do events, all those things, your website, all those things. I put a little card in that mixing bowl, and I took it and I just stirred it up and stirred it up. It's just like baking a cake. If you don't have eggs and flour and sugar in your cake, it's not going to do really well. So the same thing I was explaining is the same thing as with a marketing mix. If you don't have a good mix of media, now it doesn't have to be 25 things. It might be 4 things or 3 things or 5 things, but you need to have a mix. If you put all your marketing in one basket, Facebook, that's it, and a website, you're going to have some trouble. You need to have a good, solid mix of marketing, whatever it might be, media, advertising, community events. And that's how I look at it here. Now, we focus on television and we focused on pay-per-click. We do community events. We do home shows. We have a newsletter. We have social media. I forgot social media. Yeah. And that goes in there as well. So we have all that stuff, and it mixes up. And a person might see us, they have to see you 7 times before they even know who you are. So we hope they see us here and here and here and here and here, because we've done an integrated marketing mix of everything. And that's my marketing mix strategy, my marketing bowl strategy. It's I think it's just an easy way to be able to visualize it, the mixing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to those ingredients, how do you determine, what we should do this year? What pieces of the cake we should put in this time of year, that sort of thing? What your approach to that?
Well, so our owner, before I came here, I came here in 2016, and they had been doing infomercials. Leaf Guard has a company in Arkansas that does a lot of infomercials for them, and so we do those. They run primarily in news. Most of the time during the day, we don't run prime time because their strategy is high frequency. And so you're not, that's good, but you have to watch your costs. So you're not going to be in prime time. So we do them, during the day. And then we do pay-per-click. So the idea is that you want to focus on what's going to work for you the best. Those are the two things that have done really well for us. We'll continue to do television. It works well for us. Pay-per-click has just exploded. Last week was probably the best week we've had since I've been here. It was just, I don't know what happened last week. Maybe good weather, but they were coming in droves. So that's great. And then we'll add some other things to it. I mean, like I think we talked about home shows and community events. We do some of those. So all that stuff together hopefully is going to build us a good plan going forward. And it will have to be adjusted. We adjusted it last year. We adjusted it in 2019. We adjusted it in 2018. Every year it will have to adjust. I'd like to add back a little print, some Valpak. It did really well for us. But we'll see if that happens.
That's awesome. I love hearing just, how you go about, creating that marketing campaign, that integrated marketing campaign that you mentioned. So that's pretty cool. So I think we're running up against time, but I have one last question I like to ask every guest, and that's the last tip before we dip. So what's the number one piece of advice you would give, anyone in the home improvement industry, marketers, salespeople, contractors, anyone that's looking for marketing advice?
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to really surprise you. And it's really, really simple. And you're just going to go, wow. Answer the phone. It's a simple thing. And I'm going to tell you, when I go out and speak at places, that's one of the things that I tell people. If you call us, we're going to answer the phone. If you call us on Saturday night, we have answering service. If you call us on Monday morning, we're going to answer live. You're not going to get press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 5 for this, press 6 for this. Oh, wait a minute. You got to start all over again. And you're also not going to get a recorder. You leave a message and you might hear back. We got a survey last week, and it's not the first one that said this, and it asked, why did you pick Exterior Source? And the lady who filled it out said they were the only one of 4 who called us back.
Really?
And that's not unusual. It's it's normal, because a lot of times sometimes you're dealing with a person who is a one-person operation. They can't answer the phone, sell, install, and do all that, and maybe they don't have the money to have somebody handling some of that for them, but then they don't call you back, and you're waiting here. You need your siding replaced. You had a woodpecker eat half of your siding, and there's a board that's fallen off. You have a hole in your roof. You can't wait for a week for somebody to call you back. You need immediate gratification. So I know that sounds really funny to say that, but good customer service starts when you answer the phone. So that's my one piece of advice. And after that, you better focus on the customer and be responsive to them, follow up with them, and not just say you're giving good customer service, because I've done a lot of stuff with home improvement lately myself in my own home, and I've had some really bad customer service. So we're very cognizant of it here. And I particularly am. So good customer service, answer the phone.
That's 2 tips for 1. There you go. That's a deal.
It's pretty simple. It sounds kind of funny, but that's, yeah. And I guess you could also say, make sure you keep your website up to date. That's a very important thing. Don't have a website that somebody clicks on a link and it doesn't work. We had that problem happen. Something happened to the website a couple of weeks ago, and we had some of our brochures not work. But then of course I found out about it and we fixed them. But look at your website every once in a while. Click the link. Make sure the links work. Customers hate that when it doesn't work because they just want to do something. They want to click and see something. So yeah, that's another thing.
Well, that's awesome, Vicki. Yeah, I think we're right up against the time, and this has been, an awesome podcast. And thank you so much for sharing a lot of these insights. Everything that you're saying, I know I've personally experienced in my career, and I think a lot of people that have operated in that kind of small team, stressful environment, have experienced some of these things. But it's very rewarding, when you're seeing success. So it's always great to hear. So Vicki, thanks so much for stopping by again, and until next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.